You are listening to the End I Quote podcast, brought to you by Coterie Insurance.
The thing is that business is hard.
It's always a mix, and I think that's especially true for agents where you are your business.
I think it's work-life integration because I love what I do. What I do is not a job.
End I Quote was on a mission to share the importance of building relationships in the insurance industry. Now let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the End I Quote podcast. I'm Ashleigh Burden, one of the co-hosts here from Coterie Insurance, and I'm really excited today. We have an amazing guest on, Rick Rolfs, and Rick is the president of Rolfs Insurance Services. He's been with Coterie for over 2 years now, and so just really excited to dive into his experience. He has, I think, over 30 years. I think Rick will correct me if I'm wrong. Years of experience in the insurance industry. So with that, I'd like to welcome you, Rick. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to give our audience just a brief intro. Let us know, I know you're in the southwest side of Broward County, but just give us some more background about your professional history, anything else you want to share with our audience.
Well, essentially, I've been an insurance agent since 1989, was trained in property and casualty through the Aetna Prime Agent program in the late 80s. And have been writing property and casualty insurance ever since then, moving from a business based in residential coverage to really about 60-40 residential versus commercial lines coverage today.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that background. So you talked a little bit about the products and services that your agency offers. Give us a little bit more background. I mean, I know you mentioned your history in coming into the insurance industry, but in terms of starting your agency itself, like what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was a building process. As you come into this business with no accounts, clearly you have to write insurance to be an insurance agent. And so that process takes time. Client after client, additional line of insurance after additional line of insurance. The first few years, you don't have a lot. And as you are in this business for an extended period of time, if you're doing it right, in my opinion, you're creating relationships, getting referrals, and meeting centers of influence who refer you business and establishing credibility in the community, as well as relationships with people, as well as knowledge and the ability to consult to really help others.
Yeah, I think you hit on some really great points, especially the relationship piece. I think, even at Coterie, that's something that we talk a lot about, even in a technology focus, AI is everywhere. Like that's the industry is definitely moving forward. But I think, relationships are still a huge part of the insurance buying and selling transactions. So I think it's great that you hit on that. And so thinking a little bit about that, like, first starting out in the industry, could you have predicted where it would be today? Like, thinking about maybe the tools you use, the relationships you've built, your network. What do you think, looking back, the 30 or so years?
Well, the unique perspective of coming into this business in the late 80s, where people had brick cell phones and plain paper fax machines were the state of the art, as it were, to see it go from that level to, if you can't deal with somebody on the phone and give them immediate gratification today in the same conversation, that you're not doing a good job. The fact is that I never could have predicted that this is how technology would unwind. But effectively, we've morphed from, as I say, plain paper faxes to everything being done online, including signatures and applications, while you're talking to a person on a telephone and binding coverage with a credit card payment or routing an account number, all in the same conversation. And being able to maintain fluidity in terms of talking to people and helping them, having them understand insurance, and then getting through the actual transaction with signatures and initials, producing proof of coverage and binders within, let's say, a 30 or 40 minute conversation is really remarkable.
Yeah, definitely would agree with that. I think just the speed at which, business can be conducted these days, but I think the way that, I like to reframe it is that efficiency is also giving you more time to focus on those relationships, which I think is incredible. Um, and so with that, I mean, you've been writing with Coterie, working with Coterie, I should say, partnered with us for I think about 2 years now. So what has that experience been like for you? As a Coterie user, what was one thing that persuaded you to start working with Coterie?
Well, effectively, I'm always open to new markets as an insurance agent. I need to know what's out there so I can serve my clients with the best possible products. And the fact is that it is remarkably easy to quote and bind coverage with Coterie. It's very simple. And so simplicity always wins.
Yeah, I love that. And that's definitely the pillars that our, platform and our business was built on. And so, with that, in the vein of simplicity, I think the main way that you probably quote and buy business with us is through our agent dashboard. Is that correct?
It is true.
Awesome. Any thoughts on that? Like the dashboard experience, for our audience, it is really meant to be, a end-to-end quote and bind experience that can be done, all in less than I'd say 5 minutes. So what are your thoughts on that experience,
Well, the
Rick?
experience is good because, like what you just said, it's easy, it's fast. By the way, a phone conversation with me is never 5 minutes. But the fact is that I'm an insurance agent that's licensed. I have to explain coverages to people, have to make sure that I'm giving them, prescribing them, if you will, the right kind of coverage, understanding their business, understanding the rating basis with be it payroll or gross sales or total area, all of these things. But being able to do that in front of a computer while doing the fact finding to properly write coverage and then culminating the conversation with a transaction is very beneficial.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that experience too, because, and that's again, essentially like what, the goal behind, the platform, the entire, experience with Coterie is. And so, are there any like specific examples that you can think of, or just ways that, working with Coterie has helped make, your business more efficient?
So essentially, I write a lot of construction. This is South Florida, where regardless of the issues with hurricanes, we are building things out. Uh, Construction is gangbusters. And so I deal with a lot of different contractors, everything from very large contractors on down to people that are doing drywall and paint and light carpentry, finished carpentry, baseboards, flooring, tile, carpet, all of these things. So these type of risks lend itself because they are very cookie cutter to working with Coterie online, where commercial general liability for these small artisans speak for themselves. And as long as it fits the guidelines, I have a reasonable level of comfort to write the coverage. And it is remarkably beneficial to the client to be able to purchase it so quickly because typically I get that phone call from folks when they need a certificate of insurance or they're not going to get the contract with those that are hiring them.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think again, having that true like, instant, and I say instant with air quotes, but instant coverage, that really does help, especially in the industries that you're focused on. So I think those are great, examples, use cases, case studies really for our audience to think through. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but in Southern Florida specifically, because we have, quite a few of our partners and agents that are in that area. You mentioned before, like obviously some challenges in the market. How have you been navigating those, and what kind of things are you seeing, that are maybe forward momentum in terms of risks in the Southern Florida area?
Well, we tend to lend ourselves primarily to the excess and surplus lines market. Very little of the risk that is written down here is admitted market stuff. Basically, South Florida has quite the reputation in terms of litigious nature, people that shall we simply say, like to get things done for the least expensive price, not caring about what coverages are and doing things in a good, shall we simply say, proper manner. It's usually about money and I need my document and I don't really care. We don't really deal with too many folks that are like that. I like to explain, and if they don't have the patience for the explanation, they're not my client. But having said that, in our area, what we've seen is an enormous amount of construction. We've seen the E&S markets thrive, and we've also seen a lot of construction activity as well as other service business activities because our population is so great and varied. We've seen a lot of people come down here from the Northeast, so we keep our artisans and service people down here very busy due to the density of our population. I don't foresee that changing, even with the high cost of living, a lot of it driven by insurance, by the way. People still seem to flock here. We are the gateway for Central and South America, the Caribbean, Europe. People keep coming here. Our population keeps growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you do a great job of really, summarizing and capturing like what truly is that unique niche of the area that you're in. And so you touched on this a little bit too, but I want to switch gears a little bit and talk more about like the relationship or the client relationship aspect of your business. You really do, a great job of building those. So any, advice for our audience, maybe those just, maybe building out their agency, in terms of building those client relationships, what does that look like for you and any recommendations that you can provide?
Well, as simple as it is, the first element of relationship is to build trust. Trust is typically something that's only built over time, but it's the mundane issue of returning phone calls, which you would think everybody would do. This is South Florida. I don't know if it's different in other parts of the country, but apparently it's a competitive advantage to do the very simple task of if somebody calls you to call them back. And then it's really talking to people and understanding the business that they're in, which also means that you have to have a basic knowledge of how business works. It's helpful to understand what a feasibility study is and what a profit and loss statement is and what a rating base is in terms of payroll versus gross revenues versus number of units sold, to be able to intelligently talk to a client and understand business structure when a client does multiple different tasks in a business, to be able to advise them if they should set up a separate corporation for one function of the business versus a different corporation for another aspect of the business, because oftentimes a carrier that will write one risk, have an appetite for one exposure, he may not have an appetite for another exposure. For instance, I've got a guy that brings in ice cream from Turkey, and he has kiosks in malls, he sells to grocery stores, and he has a catering operation. He wanted to do all of this under one corporation. We helped him to set that up under 3 different corporations because they are 3 distinctly separate business operations.
Yeah, and that is, I think, the most important piece, especially in the commercial, even mid-market, small commercial space, is like you providing that, even that more consultative approach to working with your clients. So I think that's great advice for our audience, and I think that that is definitely something that will really set them apart, right? Set you apart, I think, in your relationships when you do, you're not just telling them coverage, but you're educating them, and it's clear that you have that knowledge and that you're willing to share that. With your clients. So awesome advice there. Thanks, Rick. Um, and then really just thinking about, looking forward, right? Like, I mean, again, you've been in the industry for some time. Looking forward, let's say the next 5 to 10 years, like, is there anything that you're excited about? Anything that you think, trends or things that could change potentially over the next few years in the industry?
Well, the things that I'm excited about are continued growth of the area as we build new communities and there's need for coverage for the various amenities, if you will, that come with new communities. It's all based on our residential growth. As a community is built, the commercial infrastructure is built around it, everything from medical on down to your basic ice cream shop in a strip mall. Strip malls follow where large communities are. That's exciting. The fear, if you will, is that the insurance agent will be functioned out with artificial intelligence. Does my role and my knowledge become a thing of the past when you don't have to pay a commission to a computer? I worry about that. So as I've taken continuing education classes over the years, the advice is to, as an insurance agent, become more highly specialized in complex risk, the kind of thing that AI may not be able to do, or at least take quite a while to do. Will I become a relic of the past with computers having artificial intelligence is a real fear. And quite frankly, I would like to think that the relationships that I have with people, the first person that I ever wrote insurance for in 1989 is still on my books today and has become a friend. And there is trust that comes over that period of time. And having been through some claims and other things with clients like that, if I'm doing my job right, because I am trusted, I tend to be on the inner circle of most businesses where when they get contracts, they're sending them over to me and asking me, what do I think? Is AI going to take me out of that at some point? I don't know. I would hope not. I would like to think that other humans are going to want to deal with humans, but God only knows how that's going to play.
I think you bring up some really valid points, Rick, and I think it's interesting to me because again, this conversation, we can be having this in so many different industries, but with insurance specifically, I think what you've mentioned is definitely what will set you apart and continue to set apart the amazing agents and partners that we work with is that relationship aspect. I was recently reading an article and it was talking about how those soft skills, also that relationship development and management, to your point, having a client that's been with you 35, almost 36 years. I mean, those are the things that I would confidently say that AI cannot replace. So I definitely think you will be around and agents will be around for many, many years to come. But I think it's an interesting take and a conversation that, we'll definitely continue to probably have throughout, the industry over some time. Personally, I think, the efficiency aspects of AI will can actually enable agents like you and those who have, been in the industry for some time to really take the knowledge that you have, but then turn that into whether that's content or whether that's, providing, courses and sharing your knowledge with the next generation of insurance industry folks. So definitely love your take on that. And but I do feel confident that you'll be around and you'll be needed for quite some time there. So
Thank you.
so yeah, with that, I'd love to kind of end it on that note of thinking, about advice for younger agents. I think we talked about it a little bit, but for someone maybe, thinking about getting into the insurance industry, kind of curious about it. Maybe they haven't traditionally seen it as the most exciting place to be, but maybe there's something that's got them interested. What advice would you give?
Well, the best advice I could give would be to look at who you want to be and how you want to be and what you really enjoy. I got into this business because I really wanted to help people. I view insurance as a noble profession. When I get a phone call, sometimes from clients, they are in real need of help. Usually I get the phone calls when bad stuff happens and I need to be able to help folks, talk them off the ledge, get them real help real fast. It makes me feel good to help others. And that's a big reason why I got into this business. And the side effect, the joy of it, has been the relationships with other people. It is very much a people business. And therefore, if you really enjoy people and you want to help others, want to give back in that way, if you will, this is a very noble profession. The folks that I know in insurance typically learned about it from family members or other relatives or other relationships. It's not something you go into college with saying, oh, I want to be a risk management major. You have to have some kind of knowledge of that. But having said that, when you get into it, it's really a very social business. Having lunch with somebody and talking to them, going to various carrier conferences.
And really just, it's an interesting industry too, right? Like I think, maybe some don't think of it that way, but just being able to even, meet people like you and just meet folks from so many different backgrounds and understand what their journey was to the industry and but truly the desire to help people. And so I think that's such an admirable, goal and service that you've brought to the industry, and definitely, applaud that. I congratulate you on all your success in the industry for these years. So thank you for sharing that with us.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate being here.
Anyone who's listening, you can check out the show notes and get Rick's contact information. But again, I cannot thank you enough for joining us today, Rick. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience and your expertise with our audience. And definitely just continued appreciation for your relationship and your partnership with Coterie. So again, thanks for joining the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the End I Quote podcast, brought to you by Coterie Insurance. Coterie puts insurance agents and brokers first, delivering instant business insurance across the United States. With an innovative quoting platform that delivers accurate pricing and bindable quotes in less than 1 minute, Coterie is making small business insurance effortless. Learn more about Coterie Insurance by visiting our website, located in the show notes.